The culmination of the Clone Wars and the final end of the war that had waged for years saw the collection of Jedi Knights assemble and do their part across the galaxy in order to end the conflict once and for all. With the Jedi spread across the galaxy, fighting their own respective battles as one final push towards victory, the end of the war seemed to be on the very horizon. A war that many of the Jedi previously had fought, bled, and died to win. With Count Dooku now dead, and the Separatist army in shambles, one of the final pieces to be put in place was the ultimate defeat of none other than General Grievous, one of the most notorious, horrific, and terrifying Jedi killers not only of the Clone Wars era, but in galactic history. With the death of Grievous, the Jedi could end the war. Grievous had been tracked to the planet of Utapau and was awaiting his own execution at the hands of Obi-Wan Kenobi, whether he realized this or not. While there were several reasons as to why Obi-Wan was the Jedi chosen for this particular mission, as he held a distinct set of advantages that made him the ideal Jedi to combat General Grievous and his own skill set, there were also some very serious concerns that prohibited many other highly reputable Jedi from being selected for such a dangerous task. Jedi that may potentially even be declared as more powerful than Obi-Wan Kenobi, at least at the time. Perhaps the next Jedi Master to be considered would have been Mace Windu, famed Jedi General and second only to Master Yoda within the ranks of the Jedi. As one of the most reputable combatants in the history of the Order, not to mention most well-rounded, as he was well attuned with the gifts of the light as well as the dark, Windu outclassed most, basically all swordsmen of the Jedi Order, from his tenure as a Jedi Knight, besting some of the most notorious fighters in the galactic history in his many years of mastery. Mace Windu was even a better combatant than Obi-Wan Kenobi, by Kenobi's own admittance, and was certainly a far better offensive duelist, which begs the question, why didn't Windu take on the mission to face General Grievous? And why did Windu himself say that he couldn't beat General Grievous in a one-on-one duel? Well, stick with us today, wary acolytes of the galaxy, as we analyze and dive straight into this idea and explain exactly why Mace Windu believed that it was too dangerous for him to ever engage General Grievous in lightsaber combat. Let us begin, acolytes of the galaxy. The answer to this question, boiled down, comes from the respective lightsaber forms of choice used by both Windu and Kenobi, as well as the disadvantages that Obi-Wan lacked with his mastery of Surisu. Disadvantages that Windu, although being the superior offensive fighter, did actually have in his lightsaber game. This minute detail was perhaps one of the key driving factors in making the selection, because while both Obi-Wan and Windu had advantages to offer, Windu had far more stark disadvantages holding him back against Grievous specifically. When Kenobi confronted Master Windu about the very same concerns, and why Windu ultimately wasn't the one to confront Grievous, Kenobi specifically cited their differences in styles, claiming that Windu would be a far more aggressive fighter in the engagement and would stand a better chance of penetrating Grievous's own defenses. And to this, Mace Windu responded with the following quote, "I created Vapad to answer my weakness. It channels my own darkness into a weapon for the light. Master Yoda's Ataru is also an answer to this weakness. The limitations of reach and mobility imposed by his stature and his age. But for you, Obi-Wan, what weaknesses does Surisu answer?" This quote tells us so much about why Obi-Wan was selected. This not only solidifies why Kenobi's choice of Surisu was the proper answer to Grievous's nigh unstoppable onslaught of strikes and offensive blows, but Windu is also on record as stating that he never wanted Grievous to see him utilize Vapad, his own form of Form 7 lightsaber combat that he created, let alone encounter him in a physical fight. If you are more interested in the assessment of how Kenobi's style was the ideal counter for Grievous's style, we encourage you to check out our video on why Obi-Wan was the best choice to beat Grievous. But for this one, let's specifically dive into exactly why Mace Windu was the wrong choice. Part of what made General Grievous such a formidable opponent was his uncanny ability to mimic the fighting styles of his opponents with remarkable accuracy, and with very little time needed to become proficient in a new form of lightsaber combat, not to mention mastering the intricacies of any wielder's own form, such as Vapad and Mace Windu. Grievous also paired this with the ancient Sith philosophy of Dun Mok, which was the practice of overwhelming an opponent with a barrage of rapid strikes and blows meant to disorient and confuse. Both of these together made for an incredibly terrifying opponent who was able to use a Jedi's own fears against them, not to mention their own skills, petrifying them in place for one key second to deliver the killing blow. And the aggression and ferocity with which he conducted himself was unmatched by anyone of the Clone Wars era, only matched later by the might of Darth Vader. This made Windu's concerns surrounding his use of Vaapad even more severe, as the potential thought of Grievous mimicking his own form of combat likely would have elevated Grievous from a formidable opponent to a nearly unstoppable one. Vaapad was specifically designed to channel Windu's own inner darkness, allowing him to toe the line between the light and the dark, without ever succumbing completely to the dark side. This made Windu incredibly aggressive in combat, and made his lightsaber form one of the deadliest in the era of the Republic. In addition to this, Vaapad was perhaps one of the most aggressive lightsaber styles in use at the time, Sith forms included, if not the single most aggressive form. And combining the violence of Vaapad with Grievous's own style of utilizing Dun Mok would spell certain destruction for any other Jedi that Grievous could encounter. And this advantage would give General Grievous the edge to become perhaps the single most deadly Jedi killer in galactic history, as well as an overwhelming threat to the Jedi, even the most skilled lightsaber duelists of the era. If Grievous were to encounter Windu in a physical confrontation even once and get away, then he could use the methodology and techniques of Vaapad to augment his already incredible prowess with the blade. But this highlights the stakes of this fight in a few different ways. While Windu's loss would be a devastating blow to the Republic, Windu's death was not the only way to lose this fight. All Grievous would have to do would be to survive an encounter with Windu, and this drastically raised the bar for Windu's prospective performance if he had been the one chosen. He absolutely had to win. If Grievous were to survive his duel with Kenobi and escape though, then it would be tragic, but the Republic would be able to reassess and plan another attack to compensate for this initial loss. Not all would be completely lost. With the Separatists on the ropes, there would be little that Grievous could do in order to rebuild the fledgling Separatist movement, and it was only a matter of time before he, too, would eventually be bested. If he had escaped a duel with Mace, however, this would be a very different story, as he would now be armed with Vaapad in his arsenal, and would theoretically be capable of taking on any Jedi that should come across his path. This meant that a defensive technique was the single best offense to throw at Grievous, as his barrage of strikes could only hope to be countered by the Master of Defense and the preeminent Master of Sarisu, and all Kenobi had to do was hold his own long enough to exploit a momentary weakness in order to finally put an end to the leadership of the droid army. Grievous also had very little to mimic from Kenobi in ways of offensive maneuvers, as defense wasn't exactly Grievous's preferred style, making it easier for Kenobi to hold his ground for long enough to eventually defeat Grievous once and for all. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this explanation? Did you know that Windu himself refused to fight General Grievous? And do you think that Windu could beat General Grievous in a one-on-one duel? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. Hit that subscribe button, and may the Force be with you.